Test, test. Good evening. We'll call our special council meeting to order for Wednesday, September the 13th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Number 2 is a declaration of pecuniary interest. Any members have any declarations of pecuniary interest tonight? Seeing none, we'll look at number 3 is our approval of the agenda. That the agenda for the special council meeting of September 13th, 2023 be approved as presented. Mover, Councillor Marshall, seconder, Councillor Leroux. Comments or questions? We'll have the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 4 is our in-camera items. We have a motion that in accordance with the Town of Penetanguishene Procedural Bylaw 2019-25, the Council of Town of Penetanguishene move into an in-camera session to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, or litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality or local board, including matters before administrative tribunals, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, ongoing investigation respecting the municipality, local board, and municipally controlled corporation by the Ombudsman of Ontario. We have a couple of items. Number 2 is a request for purchase of a portion of 2 Robler Drive, PL 23-47. Number 3 is appeal of the Committee of Adjustment Decision Application A723 for 23 Don Street, PL 23-49. 4 is a legal and insurance claims update, and 5 is ombudsman and confidential preliminary report. I'll look for mover. Councillor Vadavan, seconder, Councillor Marshall. Comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. We'll convene over in the closed meeting room. All right. Thank you. We have a motion that the council of the town of Penetangishene rise from an in-camera session with a report. I'll look for mover. Councillor Marshall, seconder. Councillor Drush. Comments and questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. 5 is reports from an in-camera meeting. We have a few. We'll do a separate motion. So 5.1 is regarding the request to purchase a portion of 2 Robler Drive, report PL 2023-47. It's recommended that the town of Penetangishene not declare 2 Robler Drive as surplus lands at this time. I'll look for a mover. Councillor Marshall, seconder. Councillor Waters, for the comments and questions. Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Our second item is regarding number 2 is the appeal of the Committee of Adjustment Decision Application A7 2023 for 23 Don Street, PL 2023-49. It's recommended the town of Penetangishene retain Lupsha Nixon LP for the purpose of the appeal and to defend the decision of the Committee of Adjustment regarding application A7 2023 concerning 23 Don Street. I'll look for mover. Councillor Leroux, seconder. Councillor Vadabunker. Further comments and questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Our third item is regarding the legal and insurance claims update for 2023. This is for information purposes only. I'll look for a mover. Councillor Vadabunker, or seconder. Councillor Waters, for further comments and questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 4 is regarding the Ombudsman Confidential Preliminary Report. I have a motion that staff proceed as directed. I'll look for mover. Councillor Leroux, seconder. Councillor Waters, further comments and questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on is a 6 question period from the media and public regarding this 6 o'clock meeting. Any questions from media or public? I'll ask you to please go to the podium. I ask you to please just state your name and feel free to ask your question.
Hi, I'm Michelle Biancourt and I live at 38 Owen Street. Thank you very much for listening to my request. And I just would like hopefully the town of Penetangishene to implement procedures and protocols surrounding applications for cell phone towers or telecommunication towers.
Michelle, I appreciate you coming out. We started a 6 o'clock meeting to deal with several other items that we just did, and we came back into that. So we'll be meeting again at 7 o'clock, which is the meeting I think you wanted to bring that up. So that might be the most opportune time. This was just dealing with those few items I just mentioned. If you don't mind, no, it's okay. This was just a pre-meeting to deal with some other issues that were of confidential manner, which was discussed when we brought back here. But thank you so much. Any other comments and questions from the media and public? Seeing none, I'll look for an adjournment at 6:49. Moved by Councillor Drush, second by Councillor Marshall. Call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. We'll be back in 11 minutes with council. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting for Wednesday, September the 13th, 2023. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending here this evening. We appreciate your attendance. We're going to start with a public safety announcement by our chief, Chief Renault, who will guide us through this at the podium. Thank you, Chief Renault.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. Before we start this evening, just a couple of words or a little bit of information. Should you require the washrooms are located just on the outside to the right in the hallway. Sorry, I was moving a little fast here. I didn't want to be late for Your Worship. This property is protected by a single stage fire alarm. Should the fire alarm go off, please exit through the exits at the rear or to your right on the way out. And we will gather in the parking lot closest to the arena, closest to the library. I won't make you walk to the arena. In the event of a medical emergency, please dial 911. The address here for Town Hall is number 10 Robert Street in Penetanguishene. And I also want to remind you that there is a public access defibrillator just outside the doors. Thank you. Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue à la réunion de conseil pour la ville de Penetanguishene. Une couple de mots d'information. Les chambres de bain sont juste à l'extérieur de les portes à l'arrière, à votre droite. L'édifice est protégé d'un système d'alarme de 1 stage. Si l'alarme sonne, veuillez quitter l'édifice par les portes à l'arrière ou à votre droite et on va tous se réunir dans le stationnement proche de l'église. S'il y a un cas médical, veuillez signaler le 911. L'adresse ici est le numéro 10 rue Robert-Ouest à Penetanguishene. Et je veux vous rappeler qu'il y a un défibrillateur public juste à la sortie de la porte ici de la salle de conseil. Je vous souhaite une bonne réunion. Please have a nice meeting. Thank you, Your Worship.
Chief Renault, thank you. And Chief, I want to thank you and your team for the unfolding emergencies before us, but I can't thank you on behalf of our council and our town, our community, and all the members for all you've done. I know it's still unfolding, but everyone recognizes and sees the tremendous work you're doing. Thank you so much. Next item on the agenda is our land acknowledgement. Penetanguishene respectfully acknowledges that we are on the traditional treaty territory of the Anishinaabe people and their ancestors, now known as the Williams Treaties First Nations territory. This includes Chippewa Tri-Council, comprised of Bosley First Nation, Ramba First Nation, and the Georgina Island First Nation, Alderville, Curve Lake, Hiawatha, and the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nations. Also on home of the Huron-Wendat and more recently the historic settlement of the Métis, Penetanguishene is now home to many Indigenous peoples. Penetanguishene is proud of its Indigenous name, and more importantly, that for thousands of years it has been and will continue to be an important homeland and gathering place for Indigenous people. We recognize that we are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters, and are responsible to ensure that our Mother of the Earth is here for future generations. Again, I want to thank everyone for your participation here this evening. I'm going to ask Council if we can rise, and I'm going to ask Councilor Vadabonker if you can lead us in our council commitment, please.
Thank you, Worship. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed on Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those that could not be here assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all, and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you, Councilor Vadabonker. Councilor Desroches, if you could lead us in the French version of the council commitment, I appreciate it.
Nous sommes reconnaissants des nombreuses grâces accordées à Penetanguishene et à ses citoyens dont la liberté, les possibilités et la paix dont nous jouissons. Que nous soyons des intendants dignes de tout ce que nous a été confié. Nous demandons que toutes les personnes présentes et celles qui n'ont pas pu se présenter nous aident à promouvoir une bonne gouvernance. que nos décisions à titre de membres du Conseil soient éclairées et que nous soyons tous renforcés à prendre conscience de nos devoirs et responsabilités. Que l'on nous accorde la sagesse, les connaissances, la volonté et la compréhension qui nous permettront de préserver la bonne fortune de la ville au bénéfice de tous, ainsi que de faire de bonnes lois et prendre de sages décisions. Merci de votre présence.
Thank you. Moving on, number 4 is our approval of the agenda. I have a motion that the agenda of the regular council meeting for September the 13th, 2023 be approved as presented. Looking for a mover, Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconder, Councilor Marchand. Further comments or questions? See none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 5 is our declaration of pecuniary interest. Any members have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to number 6. 6 is statement of members. It's an opportunity for council members to share with our community the work that's being done by members. I just want to start by highlighting the tremendous work that our team has done. Jeff, I'm going to turn to you for a second, our CEO. I can't applaud and appraise you enough. I think there's been nothing but highlights and success that's been done with a tragic event on the main street. I know it's a group effect. I know it's a team effect. I know you've got a tremendous team behind you. And this isn't a one person, it's a tremendous amount of work and effort with people from multiple organizations that's helping us out from the County of Simcoe, Salvation Army, Red Cross, Empower Simcoe, emergency services, and the list goes on to local residents just coming to the side to help. But Jeff, I can't thank you enough on behalf of our council and our community for your unwavering work and contribution commitment to you and your entire team. I can't thank you enough. So thank you for all you're doing. You know, this has affected so many people and, you know, we're all here to help everybody, but, you know, I think we've really stepped up and, you know, I think the town has been highlighted and everyone's really recognized that. So thank you again. Beyond that, if we go backwards, our council was at our local Association Municipalities of Ontario conference a few weeks ago in London. It was a great opportunity for members to participate in education sessions, get to participate in some delegations with ministries. Myself and Councillor Vadabunker and Deputy Mayor LaRose and our CEO, we were successfully able to have a delegation with the Minister of Environment regarding our Ojibwe landing and our secondary water source. So I think it was a great opportunity to start that dialogue about what the needs of the community are. While we're there, we're also able to talk to other ministers about other important things that's important to the community. But I think it was a great networking opportunity. I know from my view, it was a great event. And that was my piece. I want to thank you, Councillor Darash, for helping out at the seniors event today. I unfortunately wasn't able to be there, as well as some other events going on that week. So thank you for highlighting that. We'll start on our left side. Councillor Leroux, if you don't mind with your comments.
Thank you, Your Worship. 3 items. One, I had the pleasure of attending the last Friday night soiree concert at our amphitheater. Great crowd. Many people disappointed that it was the final one of the season. Congrats to Marla, Sherry, and rec staff for once again, a job well done. Number 2, I also attended the seniors barbecue with one of the greatest crowds we ever had. Kudos to Angèle for all her hard work and efforts in bringing this about. And finally, I attended the Volunteer Appreciation Night this past Sunday. There again, the biggest turnout in years. Thanks to the Friends of the Penetanguishene Centennial Museum for hosting this event.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Councillor Marchand.
Thank you. I would just echo the sentiments that were shared at the beginning of the meeting, just with commending town staff and really our town, the town of Penetanguishene, for rallying together and supporting community members who've been displaced as a result of the building. We've just seen local businesses come together, Facebook posts and people collecting donations and funds and clothes. And it's just really a true testament of how caring our community is. So it makes me very proud as a member of this council to see how we've really rallied together to support our community. So I just really want to highlight that. I think it's important. I just want to also send out a little kudos and a reminder to our initiative going on this week, which is the Commuter Challenge. Although it's been pretty wet these last couple of days, it's still not an excuse. I still haven't ridden to work. Sherry, I promise it will happen this week. So I've got 2 days left, but we're encouraging members of the public to ride, walk, roll, skateboard. That is for a member in the community that said we didn't put a skateboard on there. So you know who you are if you're watching. Get out there and be active. Really thinking about the environment. There's still time to register, submit your pictures, and all of those great things. And again, I also got to pop into the barbecue for the seniors at the museum, and it was just a really wonderful day. The weather was perfect, the music was fantastic, and it was just really positive to see. So really great work in our community as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marshall. Councillor Vadabonker.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not going to repeat everything that you and Councillor Marchand said about the response to the building collapse. I just wanted to also mention all the people behind the scenes. There's a number of people in front, the chief and our CAO and various agencies, but there are a number of people behind the scenes supporting those in the front, and I just wanted to recognize those individuals as well. I did have the opportunity to attend the seniors barbecue, and you're correct in recognizing Councillor Drush in terms of volunteering, but Councillor LaRue is closely monitoring the barbecue and flipping hamburgers. So it was a really nice event, and the entertainment was great, and it was nice to see, as was said, so many people out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vadabonker. Deputy Mayor LaRose.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I don't want to echo everything that's already been said. They were all the good things. We did have a good AMO meeting. We've seen lots of people that we needed to see. We've seen lots of new products and stuff that will help us in the future. And other than that, it's just been regular busy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Drush.
Thank you so much. And I would also like to mention that I had a great time at the barbecue. Met a lot of people, had a lot of fun, some good music, some good prizes, and so I really wanted to thank the Recreation and Community Services for organizing it, and the Community Wellbeing Committee who stepped up and volunteered to support the day. So thank you so much. I also wanted to mention that this in the next couple of weeks, September 18th to 24th, we will be celebrating Indigenous art and culture within the community. So there's so many wonderful things lined up to celebrate this very important culture here in our area. So we start off with a sunrise breakfast, for example, at the Rotary Park here in Penetanguishene. There's a whole lineup. So I really encourage you to check out the website at Culture Alliance in the heart of Georgian Bay and join in on some of those very, very spectacular contributions that folks are going to be giving during that week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Drush. Councillor Waters.
I could start off, I suppose I should mention the amazing work that the fire department did retrieving the urns that were trapped in the apartment. I think that was a great effort. In addition to that, I also went to the AMO. It was kind of neat. It's sort of a convention, I guess. Opened my eyes to some of the homeless problems around the province. I got to meet with the CAO from Renfrew, the mayor from Goderich, numerous other people to discuss, find out their different views that they have, some of the similarities that we have. Took a seniors trip to the Royal Ontario Museum with the Penetang Public Library. Got to eat a chicken dinner. And of course, with their building collapse in the main street, we got to see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people coming down to have a look at the main street. And that was kind of fun. Unfortunate for the people there, but it was kind of neat that the public got together, and there was like a real, almost like a family reunion for a while there until they moved the people back. But it was nice to see the community come together.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. CEO Lees.
Thank you, Worship. Appreciate all the comments with respect to the situation that occurred last Thursday morning. As noted, it truly has been a team effort, from everyone across the municipality, whether they're directly involved on site or in a lot of cases indirectly involved back here at the office. I would suggest that there's very few, if any, staff across the organization that have not been involved in this situation in one way or another. It truly has been an all hands on deck situation. And, I can certainly attest to the fact that this community is in good hands with the municipal staff that we employ, and we couldn't be in better shape. I will just touch on a couple quick highlights as it relates to the situation. I think probably the most important piece is that the town of Penetanguishene continues to maintain control of the site under the Building Code Act as it relates to the emergency orders that have been issued. That is first and foremost. So our CBO, Mike Campitelli, is really at the end of the day, the individual that is in control on behalf of the municipality. Shoring began yesterday, as was noted in the media release that was issued late yesterday. Housing continues to be at the very forefront of the circumstance. We continue to work with our partners. In particular, I can't say enough about the County of Simcoe's Red Cross, Salvation Army, and Power Simcoe, and the tremendous work that they do. And there will be continued progress in the coming days as it relates to those that have been displaced. The last thing I would just say is that we were very excited this morning to be able to open the sidewalks on the east side of Main Street, as well as on the west side of Main Street from Robert down to the gym. And I think that was very positively received. And certainly, I know at a number of different times today, I saw residents, shoppers alike, walking the streets, entering businesses and exiting the businesses with bags and purchases in their hands. So it was really tremendous to see. And that was really couldn't have happened without the collective effort of the entire team that made that happen. Not only our municipal staff, but our professional experts. I think, Your Worship, that's really all I would like to update on with respect to the site. And I won't reiterate the AMO conference stuff that has already been noted. Thank you.
Thank you, CLEs. And just one more final comment on the appreciation and applaud train. What things that people don't see is the phone calls at 3:30 in the morning and 11 o'clock at night, and that's time away from your family. So I think everybody involved, that's time away from your family. So huge appreciation to everyone's family that have been affected that are contributing to this as well. All right, let's move on to number 7, our proclamation. 7A, we have a proclamation regarding Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas approximately 10,000 children are living with cancer in Canada today, each year about 1,500 cases are diagnosed. Because of significant advances in therapy, 82% of these children will survive 5 years or more. Childhood cancer remains responsible for more deaths from 1 year through adolescence than any other disease. And whereas families facing the journey of childhood cancer need the best possible medical, financial, and emotional support we can provide, every family touched by childhood cancer needs support of its relatives, neighbors, teachers, and community. Parents need the understanding and compassion of their employers. Brothers and sisters need special consideration both at home and in school. Young cancer patients themselves need every opportunity to express and pursue the dreams that are the hallmark of childhood and the hope that cancer can be beaten. And whereas this month we recognize the dedication and hard work of all those scientists, healthcare professionals, parent organizations, and volunteers who are working to overcome childhood cancer and assist these families, we admire and support the courageous youth and parents who struggle with this disease. And whereas we applaud and commend the dedicated volunteers at Candlelighter Simcoe parents of children with cancer for the work they do for families of children with cancer in the region. Now therefore, I, Mayor Doug Rawson, and on behalf of the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene, do hereby proclaim September 2023 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month in the Town of Penetanguishene. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor DeRush and Councillor Water seconding that. Comments and questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 8 is a public meeting. They have 2 this evening. One regarding a zoning bylaw amendment for 120 Military Road, and a second regarding 200 Fox Street and 2 Hope Street. So this is a public meeting under the Planning Act to consider an application for a zoning bylaw amendment, file ZA 8-2023 for 120 Military Road, and a second application for zoning bylaw amendment, file ZA 9-2023 for 200 Fox Street and 2 Hope Street. The purpose of the applications is to confirm the zoning bylaw amendment. To council, the purpose of this public meeting is to provide an opportunity for the public to make comments The intention of this public meeting is not to engage in a debate regarding the merits of the application, nor is it projected to be a question and answer session. There is an opportunity later in the meeting to ask questions about the application. Andrea, could you please introduce the application? And I'd ask if you can confirm whether or not public notification was made, any correspondence is received, and if you can outline the proposals, please.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Your Worship, members of council and the public. The first public meeting is in regards to 120 Military Road. The notice of tonight's public meeting was given on August 23rd. It was given to residents within 120 meters or 400 feet from the subject property, as well as a notice sign was placed on the property in accordance with the town's policies. We have the owner here tonight who would probably be able to answer any questions should council or have any. The application is for permission under the zoning bylaw for a temporary use to permit the installation of a garden suite on the property. This is a special section of the Planning Act that allows for the municipality to consider a use that is temporary in nature and enter into any agreements for that purpose. So tonight, the application is to permit to hear from the public that would for the property that would enable a garden suite to be located on the property for up to 20 years. Notice was given and we've received correspondence from Enbridge, Canada Post, the Severn Sound Environmental Association. And we did have as part of the application process, a scoped environmental impact study done on the property, which has been peer reviewed by the Severn Sound Environmental Association and it deemed there are no negative impacts to the natural environment with respect to the proposal. I would just add together with this temporary permission for the garden suite, and I should maybe clarify, a garden suite is a movable detached house dwelling unit that is placed on the property and then hooked up to services. With the placement of that garden suite on the property, a temporary permission for an additional accessory building under our zoning bylaw and increased lot coverage for that temporary building is also being sought. So with that, Your Worship, I'm happy to answer any questions and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. Andrea, is the agent or applicant wish to address us this evening?
The owner here is Mr. Gerard Forget here. I'm not sure if he wants to, but if you do, come on up and if you could. Nothing
Okay.
at this time.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask if anyone in the public would like to make comment on this application based on land use planning issues relevant to this application. If you had asked you to come to the podium. And again, do any members of the public want to come to the podium and speak to these two applications before us this evening? Sarah, is there anyone online that wants to comment? Are we introduce them as two separate? Okay. Okay, so if there's no concluding comments from the applicant or agent on this file, I'll thank everyone for attending this portion and we'll go to the second file, Andrea. Okay, would you mind identifying the notification for the second application? And as well, if you can update us on the correspondence received and the notification for the public, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So the second public meeting is in regards to properties we call 200 Fox Street and 2 Hope Street. These are new blocks of the development known as the Champlain Shores subdivision. We do have the applicant's agent on the line, Nick Scarrett from IPS Consulting, who's going to give a walkthrough of the request. But I can confirm that notice again was given on August 23rd to residents within 120 meters, posted on a sign on the property as well as on our town's website. To date, we've received correspondence from Enbridge, Canada Post and Severn Sound Environmental Association with respect to the application. Potentially, I can turn it over to Nick Scarrett so he can explain in far better detail than I can about what the proposal asks for. It is a zoning amendment and it is for the subdivision of Champlain Shores. So Nick, I think you're there and I'll just turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Andrea. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. I'll just share my screen for a presentation. So good evening. Your worship, Mayor Rawson, council members, staff and the public. My name is Nick Scarrett with Innovative Planning Solutions, here to speak on behalf of the owners of the lands municipally known as 200 Fox Street and 2 Hope Street in the town of Penetanguishene. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the proposed development and zoning bylaw amendment and receive feedback from council and the public in attendance tonight. The intention of this application is to facilitate the rezoning of the subject lands to residential 3 with exemptions within the town zoning bylaw for the development of 2 5-story apartment buildings with a combined total of 88 residential units. Before getting into the details of the site characteristics, I believe it is important to provide some general background of how we got here today. In 2020, council approved a zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision for the area known as Champlain Shores. The draft plan of subdivision, which includes the lands we are discussing tonight, contains 28 single detached units, 21 townhouses, and 36 apartment units for a total of 86 residential units. The subdivision also contains a marina, recreational open space areas, and a water lot. The subdivision agreement to allow development to occur was executed in September of 2022. It is important to note that the subdivision contains a common elements condominium approved, which comprises of private roads, servicing to all units, and provides access to the apartment block, parking areas, recreational spaces, and the water lot. In relation to the subject property at tonight's public meeting, which is part of the Champlain Shores subdivision and located along the south boundary of the development area shown in red on the outline on this current slide, contains a lot area of 7,751.8 square meters with an approximate frontage of 45.7 meters along Fox Street and 147.9 meters along Hope Street. The property is currently vacant and the area is under construction for pre-servicing works in line with the approved Champlain Shores subdivision. This slide provides a high-level overview of surrounding land uses for the subject property. The Champlain Shores subdivision, which is currently under construction, is located to the south and west of the subject property, which allows for residential, recreational open space, and marina uses. Directly to the north is an existing marina use called Foundry Cove Marina, and further north lies Huronia Public Park, single detached homes, and Discovery Harbor. East of the site are residential uses within the village of Bay Moorings. The subject site contains lot frontage along Fox Street to the east and Hope Street to the south. Further west is the Penetanguishene Harbor. This slide provides a high-level overview of the town's official plan with respect to the subject property. The town's official plan designates the subject property as mixed use and commercial area. This property also falls within site-specific policy areas and is subject to policy 4.4.3.1 of the official plan, which states the following shall apply. A marina shall be a permitted use. Commercial establishments that are designated oriented as such as motels, hotels, restaurants, commercial recreational uses are permitted in accordance with section 3.5.1. Residential uses in accordance with section 4.3.1 and 4.3.2 are permitted. Uses accessory to any of the permitted uses in the site-specific policy area shall be permitted. Any expansion or new development shall be subject to the community design and built form policies of the official plan and community improvement policies of section 3.3. As noted, residential uses are permitted in this land use designation. The proposal of 2 5-story apartment dwellings with a combined unit count of 88 units is in compliance with the existing land use designations and policies of the official plan. Building off the framework of the official plan, the town zoning bylaw is an implementation tool that contains specific regulations such as uses, setbacks of structures, parking requirements, building heights, and landscaped areas. This slide shows the existing zoning of the subject property. The property is currently zoned open space exemption 71, holding provision 2, located on the east portion of the property. Open space exemption 2 along the north property line, and residential 3 exemption 70. The green portions of the zoning map represent the open space zones, and the yellow and black areas represent the residential zones. These zones are approved as part of the zoning bylaw amendment in the 2020, approved in 2020, along with the draft plan of subdivision. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone these lands to a new zone classification with site-specific provisions to facilitate the development of 2 5-story apartment buildings with a combined total of 88 residential units. Each building will contain 44 units in each. This slide provides a site plan concept of the development proposal. The proposed development comprised of 2 5-story apartment buildings with a total of 88 units, at-grade structured parking, exterior outdoor parking, and landscaping. Vehicular access to the site will be provided off Hope Street. A total of 134 parking spaces will be provided throughout the development, including 56 parking spaces within at-grade parking structures and 78 exterior parking spaces. Parking is provided at a ratio of 1.5 spaces per residential unit. The building is oriented central to the site, allowing efficient use of the land while providing multiple parking locations and pedestrian connections to the subdivision and water amenities. The development looks to support a range of housing types and costs that will support the town in meeting the housing needs of current and future residents. It should be noted that no floor plans have been created at this point in the process. However, it is anticipated that the residential units will be a mixture of market demand bedroom types. As this development is subject to site plan control, further development details will be reviewed through the site plan control process at a later date. This will include a high level of urban design and architecture to achieve an attractive built form in line with the town policies and guidelines. This slide illustrates the current zoning classification and proposed zone to facilitate the proposed development. I will provide a quick summary of the proposed site-specific zoning exemptions for this proposal. The first special provision, through the draft plan of subdivision approval process, the subject lands were divided into blocks 9, 10, and 11, originally intended to accommodate a 36-unit apartment building on block 9, an open space area on block 10, and a private recreational center on block 11. Through the proposed redesign of the site, blocks 9, 10, and 11 will instead be combined to accommodate 2 44-unit apartment buildings. To support the application of the development standards over the entirety of the proposed development, it is proposed that blocks 9, 10, and 11 will be reviewed as one development block for the purposes of zoning. The second special provision, currently the front yard is Fox Street as defined in the zoning bylaw. In respect of urban design guidelines and considerations, the buildings have been designed to front facing towards Hope Street, which is a private roadway and internal to the subdivision. Through this design, activity would be focused along Hope Street with primary building entrances, pickup and drop-off areas, and accessible parking areas situated along Hope Street. Focusing activity internal to the subdivision allows for an appropriate transition to the neighborhood area and on the east side of Fox Street. The third site-specific exemption, under the proposed redesign of the site, a 20-meter rear yard setback, which is required under the current zoning with Fox Street as the front yard, is no longer required to support an alternative setback and transition to adjacent uses. Provided that Hope Street is the front lot line, the rear yard is now situated adjacent to the outdoor boat storage associated with Boundaries Cove, Marina to the north. Given an appropriate landscape buffer is provided to this use, it is understood that the 8.5 meter rear yard setback would be appropriate separation between the outdoor storage area and the proposed development. Further to this, an 8.5 meter rear yard setback exceeds the requirements of the R3 zone of 7.5 meters. The next special provision, the proposed maximum height of this development is 18 meters, where 14 meters is the current maximum. It is anticipated that this height will be most evident along Hope Street, internal to the site, and all efforts will be made to reduce the height or impact of the height along Fox Street through the site plan control process. Further to this, the proposal maintains a 5.5 meters building setback to Fox Street, greater than the required R3 zone setback of 3 meters, to increase separation from Fox Street and thereby reduce impact of height along the Fox Street streetscape. The fifth special provision, the current maximum density of the current zoning classification for Block 9 is 36 units. The proposed density for the subject site that includes Block 9, 10, and 11 is 88 units. The proposal supports residential intensification within the town's delineated built boundary, helping to achieve intensification and growth targets as per the provincial and county directives. The increased density further assists with providing housing options and a range of housing costs for additional built form flexibility within the subdivision. The final and sixth special provision is related to parking. Minimum parking space requirements of 132 parking spaces is provided where 154 parking spaces are required under the R3 zone. To meet the minimum requirement of 1.5 parking spaces per unit, the proposal provides 134 parking spaces for residential use. The bylaw requires an additional 0.25 parking spaces per dwelling unit to accommodate visitor parking. It is understood that visitor parking areas are provided as part of the common elements condominium registered over the lands. It is anticipated that between the on-site parking and the additional shared parking within the subdivision, significant parking will be available to meet resident and visitor needs. For ease of reference, this slide provides a list of the requested site-specific provisions in order to accommodate the proposed development of 2 5-story apartment buildings with a total of 88 units. These site-specific provisions form part of the requested rezoning to residential 3 exemption for the subject lands, which includes Block 9, 10, and 11 as part of the draft approved subdivision. This slide provides a policy and regulatory summary of applicable planning documents. The proposed development aligns with and promotes established policy visions for this area as stipulated through the provincial policy statements, the growth plan, the county official plan, and the town official plan. The zoning change contributes to intensification targets in an efficient manner within lands identified as strategic growth areas. The proposed development utilizes municipal infrastructure in an appropriate form to provide a range of housing types complementing the subdivision. The proposal meets guiding principles for development based on review of these provincial, county, and municipal policy documents. In conclusion, the purpose of the requested zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the subject lands from open space exemption 71, holding provision 2, open space exemption 72, and residential 3 exemption 70 to a singular zone residential 3 site-specific exemptions to reflect the proposed development of 2 5-story apartment buildings with a total of 88 units. It is consistent and aligns with provincial policy interests, provincial planning interests and policies, supports intensification targets, and provides a range of housing options to address current and future needs. We have reviewed all current comments submitted for this public meeting and have no concerns. This concludes the presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time. I also do want to thank municipal staff and the planning department for your assistance in processing this application. It's greatly appreciated, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm not going to ask any members of the public if anyone has wishes to make any comments on this application based on land use planning issues relevant to this application. If you do, I'd ask you to come to the podium, please. Sarah, do we have anyone online that would like to comment on this file? Sir, you would? I'd just ask you to go to the podium. Andrew, if you don't mind, just make sure the microphone's on. And sir, I just ask that you please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, hello, my name is Claude Morrow. I just had some questions.
Ms. Morrow, can I just ask you to give your address too, just for our records, please?
Yeah, actually, I basically live at 995 Glenbogie Crescent in Midland. Yeah. I'm also the custodian at the church over here. But I'm just kind of wondering, so the proposal, as I see, is going to be for a 5-story building. Do we have any limits right now for height restrictions on buildings in Penetang? Seems kind of high for Penetang, like.
I'll ask Andrea if you could address that question, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through you to Mr. Moreau. So what part of the request that's asked is this zoning application is our maximum height that's permitted is 14 meters. So it's about 4 stories is the maximum height permitted in this zone in town. And so through this request, they would be going up 4 meters to a total of 18 meters, and that's the 5 stories. So 14 meters is the maximum height in town, and this is a 1 story higher than currently permitted.
Okay. I also have experience with other large buildings being put up like this, where not all members of the community were informed that we're going to be losing their view of the bay. So I'm not sure if those issues have been addressed in this particular situation, if it's still preliminary.
I appreciate the comment. When we started this public meeting, I asked the director if notification was made, confirmation was made about that. And now is your opportunity to provide comments about the public presentation that was just done.
Because I understand that there's a certain boundary that you use, like so many meters or whatever from the actual site.
Regarding this application, sir, we've asked our director if notification was made, and I'll ask the director again. Andrea, can you just confirm that notification was made on this application, please?
Yes, I can confirm that notification was given. The notice distance is 120 meters from the subject site, or about 400 feet from the subject property. Together, it was posted on a sign on the property as well as on our website.
Thank you very much. Sir, do you have any other questions regarding this application?
Yeah, from what I see, like 400 meters is not really a very far way to go from the actual site, seeing that Penetang's built on a hill. So everybody up from this site is going to potentially lose a large chunk of their view of Penetang Bay. And should they not also be advised? Like I know it's marked in the newspaper. Not everyone reads the newspaper, for instance. So I'm just kind of, because I know I have a sister that lost a large part of her view, which she had at one point whenever they built those condos just south of Church Street, right? And it, I don't know, to me, it's unfair to the people that basically are retired in this community, and all of a sudden, these large 5-story buildings are put up with. Not much.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions regarding this application before us? There's no decision. This is a public information session at this time.
No, that's it. I just some comments.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sarah, are there any members online that have wish to comment? Thank you. And I'll ask again if there's any members of the public who wish to make comments on this application based on land use planning issues relevant to the application. If you do, I'd ask you to come to the podium, please. Ask you to please place your name and address for the record.
Hi there, my name is Lynn Cooper and I live at 12 Tessier Drive. It's been changed to Court in Penetang. I just had a quick question because I don't understand. When somebody gets, or a group of people get a notice, does that mean we've told you? Or is there some way to say we're not happy about that?
Thank you for the question. Tonight, we have this part of our meeting tonight specifically regarding a zoning bylaw amendment. Right now, we're talking about the address of 200 Fox Street and 2 Hope Street. This public meeting that we're having right now is for the applicant to present the application. No decisions are being made about nothing. We started the process tonight by asking our director if notification was given. And I asked clarification that it was given according to the policies and the act before us. And I asked again, she confirmed that that was done. No decisions have been done. This is a public meeting where you get to ask questions of the applicant. Later in the meeting, there'll be opportunity for us as a council to be able to give some direction to staff, but we're too early to be there. Okay. So for this application, there was notification done according to the policy. I'll ask Andrew one more time, just for clarity. Andrew, I know you've done it twice. Can you just confirm so everyone's aware, what does that notification mean for this application, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. So the notification is done from the distance of the property lines of blocks 9, 10, and 11. It is set under the Planning Act for what the distance is that municipalities must give notice to. So I can confirm that we've complied with the Planning Act in giving notice, the distance and the people that were given that notice. Additionally, the town's notice policy has a requirement for a sign to be installed on the property. It's a 4-foot by 4-foot sign. And we also post it on our website just to make sure that we're getting the information out as best as we can.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'll ask again if there's any members of the public who wish to make comment on the application based on land use planning issues relevant to this application. If you do, I'd ask you to please go to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please. And Sarah, for one final check, is there anyone online with comments? Thank you. I'm going to ask if there's any concluding comments from the applicant or agent on this file. Are they still online? So I'll just ask you, so if there's any concluding comments from the applicant or agent regarding this file.
Through you, your worship, no, not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to thank everyone for your attendance and participation in this public meeting that we've just done regarding these two properties. I'm going to close the public meeting portion. And I'm just going to ask if council has any questions regarding these applications. Seeing none. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is number 9, deputations and presentations. We don't have any this evening. Number 10 is our adoption minutes not already confirmed. We have minutes from council of August the 9th, 2023. I have a motion that the following minutes of council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Council August 9th, 2023. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor Darash, a seconder. Deputy Mayor LaRose. Comments or questions on the minutes as circulated? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 11 is our consent agenda. We don't have any items on there for this evening. 12 is matters for consideration. 12A is regarding a zoning bylaw amendment file number ZA 8-2023 regarding 120 Military Road. It's the background of the public meeting we just had about 20 minutes ago, that this report be received for discussion and that staff be directed to prepare a report for future council meeting to address the comments received at the public meeting. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor LaRue, seconder. Councillor Vedabunker. Any further comments or questions on this? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. 12B is regarding the zoning bylaw amendment ZA 9-2023 regarding 200 Fox Street and 2 Hope Street. 2R-2023-45 that this report be received for discussion and that staff be directed to prepare a report for a future committee of the whole meeting to address any comments received at the public meeting. I'm going to look for a mover. Councillor Marshaw, seconder. Councillor Vedabunker. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Just for everyone, what did we just do? So we had the public meeting where you asked some questions. That motion we just moved, all we're asking staff is, can you take the comments that you asked and everything that was presented, and can you come back at a future meeting for us to actually have an opportunity to debate and discuss the merits before us? So nothing's been approved, nothing's been done. We've asked staff, can you please take this away and come back at a future meeting for us to further look at it? Members of the public have an opportunity to comment at that time as well. So I just wanted to give you some background, what happened there. I'm going to move on to item 13 is a presentation, consideration of report regarding committee of the whole. I'll just give a quick update. What are we doing here? Every meeting, we have a council meeting, which we're in now, and then we follow with a committee of the whole. So committee of the whole meeting of August is when our committee would have looked at issues. Now those are coming forward for us to ratify at council. Okay. So of our committee of the whole report from August the 9th, 2023, I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor LaRose if you can bring forward the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report regarding recreation and community services section, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Not having it off the top of my head, I don't believe that we had any last month, so we are good to go.
Thank you. So I have a recommendation, the committee of the whole report relating to recreation and community service section be approved. It's moved by the deputy mayor. Seconder? Councilor Marshall, further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Our second item is regarding the planning and development services section. I'm going to ask Councilor Vadabunker if you could bring forward those items for us, please.
Thank you, Worship. Just the highlights from the Planning and Development Services section. We dealt with 4 consent items, 2 of them which were the subject of the public meeting that we just had. We had 1 information report dealing with the municipal accommodation tax, and committee is recommending that council receive that report. And we had no new referrals on council or the committee's referral list. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Vadabunker. I have a recommendation that, that the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report relating to the planning and development services section be approved. It's moved by Councilor Vadabunker. Seconder, Councilor Marshall. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Next is our section regarding the transportation environmental services section. Councilor Marshall, if you can bring those items forward, please.
For our section for transportation and environmental services, we had 3 items on the consent agenda. We had the transit report, we had the roads KPI report as well, and we also reviewed and discussed the telecommunications tower notice for 17 Point Street. We had 1 item that was brought forward in terms of a matter for consideration, and that was the Payette Water System secondary water supply.
Thank you, Councilor Marshall. That the recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report relating to the transportation environmental services section be approved. It's moved by Councilor Marshall, seconded by Councilor LaRue. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. And regarding the finance and corporate services section, Councilor DeRush.
Thank you. The Finance and Corporate Services had 2 consent agenda items for consideration. The first was the 2023 second quarter financial summary. It was received for information. The second item was the update on the 20-year community-based strategic plan, along with a strat plan information pamphlet. You may recall that at the July Committee of the Whole meeting, staff was directed to reach out to residents, businesses, and community partners to receive comments and feedback on the proposed plan. This was to ensure that full review of the plan was completed. At the August meeting, staff updated council and the public on their efforts to reach out to the community for comments. Deadline was August 21st. This report was also received as information. On behalf of the section, I ask that council approve the recommendations as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor DeRush. The recommendations contained within the committee of the whole report related to the finance and corporate services section be approved. Moved by Councilor DeRush, seconder, Councilor Waters. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Moving on, 14 is our presentation and consideration of the report regarding special committees. We do not have any this evening. Next is motions of which notice has been previously given. We don't have any. Tonight, moving on, 16 is notices of motion. So notice of motion is when a member of council can bring forward a motion. We do not debate it. It's not discussed. It's to give the public notice that we want to talk about this. It'll come forward at our next meeting next month. Okay. So I have 1 notice of motion before us tonight. And the notice of motion is being moved by Councilor Vadabunker, seconded by myself, Mayor Rossin. Whereas the town of Penetanguishene has purchased property at 51 Dunlop Street and designated the site for a future multi-use recreation center. And whereas the Penetanguishene Protestant Separate School Board, Burkeville Elementary School, has outgrown its space and is looking to build a new school on an expanded site. As the town of Penetanguishene is in need of affordable rental housing and has expressed interest in working with the county of Simcoe for the provision of such housing in Penetanguishene. Be it resolved, the council of the town of Penetanguishene expresses its desire to work with the Protestant Separate School Board to establish a new Burkeville Elementary School on the property of 51 Dunlop Street for the provision of space to allow for basketball, volleyball, and pickleball and other indoor sports that can be physically linked to the new town recreation center to create a multi-use recreation hub. Be it resolved, that as a condition of working with the Protestant Separate School Board on the provision of the new site for its elementary school, the school board will be required to donate its current school site at 39 Burke Street to the town. Be it resolved that the council of the town of Penetanguishene expresses its desire to work with the county of Simcoe through the mechanism of a call for proposal and or current request for information in the provision of affordable rental housing on the former Burkeville School property, subject to obtaining the property from the Protestant Separate School Board by donating the property to the county of Simcoe as the town's contribution. Be it resolved that the council of the town of Penetanguishene communicate its desire to work with the Penetanguishene Protestant Separate School Board, the county of Simcoe, and the Ministry of Education on these initiatives. Finally, be it resolved that pending a positive response to council's decision from the Protestant Separate School Board and the county, a task force be created with representatives from all parties to explore this opportunity further. Again, that motion will not be discussed or debated tonight. That'll come forward at our next meeting in October. And Madam Clerk, I believe that's October the 11th or 13th, somewhere around there. But it'll be that Wednesday in October. Moving on is 17, consideration of bylaws. Before I read the bylaws, do any members of council want to pull them and discuss them separately? Okay. So we have a few bylaws for us to pass tonight. So bylaw 2023-49 being a bylaw to repeal bylaw 2023-43, being a bylaw to consolidate the traffic, parking, and use of highways regulations, and to repeal bylaw number 2022-02 and all amendments to the same. And bylaw 2023-50, bylaw of the corporation of the town of Penetanguishene to govern the proceedings of the council and its committees, a procedure manual for council and committees, and to repeal bylaw 2019-25. And bylaw 2023-51 being a bylaw to establish the position of a screening officer for the purpose of administration of an administrative monetary penalty system within the town of Penetanguishene. And that the council of the town of Penetanguishene introduce those bylaws, and that the bylaws be read a first time, be deemed read a second time, a third time, and carried. I'll look for a mover. Deputy Mayor LaRose, a seconder. Councillor Vadabunker, further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And those are carried. Number 18, we always provide an update regarding the county of Simcoe. Myself and the deputy mayor sit on the county of Simcoe. We like to provide an update to our community about what that is. So the deputy mayor provides us updates at every council meeting. Deputy Mayor, if you don't mind updating the community for us.
Thank you, Your Worship. This one will also be quick. We had our summer meeting missed because we were all at attendance at a convention in London. We did have a meeting this past Tuesday, and it was to take care of some housekeeping items. And we had a rather large discussion about what we were going to set our tax rate at to the municipalities. So that's basically where we are at up until yesterday.
I know she didn't say the amount. I know she just said if we didn't say the amount. Okay. Moving on. 19 is our question period from the media and public. If anybody has any questions regarding this agenda items, I'd ask that you come to the podium and you're welcome to ask what that would be to your council. Seeing none, we're going to move on to number 20, announcements and inquiries. I'm going to ask council if you have any announcements or inquiries. I'll look down to Councilor LaRue.
Just to remind everyone that this coming Sunday is the Terry Fox Run. And I believe it starts off at the Tiny Township Recreation Center.
Thank you, Councilor LaRue. Any other members have any announcements or inquiries? I have one. I know there's been a lot of public interest regarding the proposed cellular tower coming to the community. I know that there's been interested parties that want to delegate to council. I believe that that's coming forward in October. I know that the proponent has reached out to Madam Clerk to come and do a presentation to council as well. We started tonight with the fire chief doing a public safety announcement. Understanding that there's a large number of public interest in this matter, we've decided we're going to be calling a special council meeting. The clerk will be announcing this and publishing this in the coming days to a week. Tentatively, we're looking at middle of October. And all we'll have on that agenda item is the proposed tower and the presentation, the delegation. That's all will be on there. And we'll be holding that at Brian Orchard Hall because we anticipate we may have more members than this facility can hold. So stay tuned. We will be communicating the next meeting in October. Again, it'll be on our community calendar on the website. And I'm sure through the clerk's office, they'll be making an announcement about that. So middle of October, after our next council meeting, that's when we'll be doing that. It will not be at our next regularly scheduled council meeting. So just so you're aware. I also want to thank everyone for reaching out to myself and, members of council. We read everything and we appreciate you reaching out to us about that. CLEs, any announcements or inquiries that you want to be aware of, or Madam Clerk?
Not for myself. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, confirmation bylaw. I have a confirmation bylaw 2023-52 be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. And look for a mover, deputy. Councilor Rowe. I'm sorry. Tonight I'm off. Councilor Rowe and second by Councilor Marshall. Yeah. For the comments or questions, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. We'll look for an adjournment at 8:02 by Councilor Darash, seconded by Councilor or Deputy Mayor Rose. Man, 8:02. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. That concludes our council for tonight. Next, we're going to jump into our committee of the whole meeting. Remember a few minutes ago, we did a bunch of committee of the whole reports. That's our next meeting, committee of the whole. We're going to recess for about 8 minutes. We'll get back at 8:10 and we'll move into our committee of the whole. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. All right, we're going to call our committee of the whole meeting to order for Wednesday, September the 13th, 2023 at 8:12 p.m. I have a motion that the committee of the whole agenda for September the 13th, 2023 be approved as presented. It's moved by Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Waters. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 3 is declaration of pecuniary interest. Any members have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Councillor DeRush.
I declare a conflict of interest for, should have this prepared, for the Section D, Finance and Corporate Services. And it will be item 3, Arena Financial Contribution for Township of Tiny. I work at that municipality, so I will declare conflict. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor DeRush. It's been duly noted by the clerk. I believe you're chairing that section, so maybe just before I pass it to the Deputy Mayor. Thank you so much. Do any other members have any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to 4 is our presentation delegations. We don't have any this evening. 5 is our council information package. We have 2 of them, one for August the 23rd and one for September 6th. Just for members of the public, just for your information, we get lots of information come to us. It could be between us and another municipality. It could be from the ministry, a number of ministries. So we place on this thing called council information package. So you have information to a lot of the things we would see. And it's put on by those dates. Every 2 weeks, our clerks will put that on. So that's what those items are. Do any members of council have any items on the council information package you wish to pull for further comment? Seeing none, we have a motion that the council information package having been given due consideration be received for information. A mover, Councillor Marchand, and second by Councillor Vadabonker. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Number 6 is our Transportation Environmental Services section, and I'm going to pass the chair over to you, Councillor Marchand.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I will speak into the microphone so I can be heard properly. Under consent agenda items, we have no items for this evening. Under matters for consideration, we have 2 items that will be presented and discussed this evening. The first one is the installation of fuel storage tanks and fueling station at 24 Centennial Drive, RDS 2023-12. The recommended action is that council approves the installation of the fuel storage tanks within the roads division yard at 24 Centennial Drive. Looking for a mover. Deputy LaRose, a seconder. Councillor LaRue. And then I can provide comments about this, right? So just to give a general overview, in the report, you'll see that is presented before you. We are looking at some overall cost savings for fuel for the town. This report provides an overview of what some of those cost savings are. This is an initiative by our Transportation Environmental Services Department to look at and taking advantage of the opportunity to do the fuel purchasing, the bulk purchasing through the county. And it does propose some significant savings, not only financially, but also time and hours for staff vehicles that require fuel. The fuel tanks, there is a proponent that is outlined in terms of the supplier. They would be supplying the fuel tank, so there's no charge for us to have those actual holding containers for the fuel. Consultation has been done as well in terms of environmental services, and there's no concerns. We just have to ensure that we have all the appropriate policies and procedures put in place. Certainly, there's some overall savings, but certainly there's a lot of convenience for all town staff vehicles in terms of fueling our vehicles directly at the public works site up on Centennial Drive. Any other questions or comments by council? Your Worship?
Thank you. I'm wholeheartedly against this proposal. I'll be voting in opposition to this. This same report came forward, I believe, in 2017. I know at council at that time we had a lot of discussion about that. I think from a savings perspective, $25,000-$30,000, it's not worth it from my view. I know when we talked about this years ago, our single source of water to our community is the Pyatt Wells. I think it's too risky for us as a community to consider putting fuel pumps to save a couple dollars up at our only sole source watershed It's too risky as a municipality. That's what we decided years ago. I don't know what's changed in a matter of a few years. The relationship we had with Watson Shell, and we've supported them with the generator, was to support local businesses. I think, if we're talking about saving a couple minutes and a little bit, it's not worth the real risk to the community. Right now, we're looking at a secondary water source. We have to protect water. That's our number one priority, and that's my number one priority. And from my view, nothing's changed dramatically enough to put that at risk. So I hope as a council, that's what we'll do, because this is more than $25,000 of savings. This is tremendous risk. And we talk about risk, and we talk to our friends from SSE as an example, and we do that in every planning project we look at. And I don't see why we're looking at that from a $25,000 expense. So I hope we can all look at that from that lens. And again, I'll be voting in opposition.
Thank you, Your Worship. Any other members of councils have comments, or Councillor Waters?
I was also opposed to it. From what I read in the report, it did talk about the 25,000, and then they talked about card lock costs, and that I didn't really notice to see what that figure was going to be. So I don't think our savings is going to be 25,000 if we were to go with this. It's going to be something less. I think it's very important that we maintain our only gas station in the whole entire community as our source of gas. If for some reason we were to lose that, it's just one more thing that's gone from the town. I think we owe it to the town to maintain as much business as we can in town.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Any other members of council have comments? Oh, yes.
Yes, Madam Chair, I wonder if we could get some comments from our Director of Public Works in regards to this matter.
Absolutely. Brian, could you comment?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. The implications of storing fuel up at the Public Works Depot were reviewed, and we did review it with our risk management official at SSEA, who reviews our source water protection policies and implements them for us. And her recommendations were outlined in the report. Given the proximity to our Payette well field, there are no risk management plans. They did recommend fuel handling procedures, which we would implement regardless. The tanks in question would be double walled. We would provide secondary containment, implement policies on fuel handling, anything to mitigate the risk associated with this. The current method of purchasing fuel right now, which is the retail, we get our fuel primarily from this gas station, and there are cheaper alternatives through this program that we currently use to purchase colored diesel, which we store up at the Public Works Depot. And through this contract, they will provide these tanks free of charge to us through this contract. So we thought it would be a good cost savings measure, $25,000 annually, and recommending this from our operations and also a cost savings perspective.
Could I ask one additional clarification? Because I do understand that there was a generator purchased in partnership, but can you just outline what that means in terms of the partnership and that particular generator and the premise? Because I was not a member of council at that time, just so that there's some clarity.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, the generator purchased, I believe it was 15 to 20 years ago, through Watson's Shell at the time. It was primarily used as a cost sharing measure between us and the store in the event of emergency or power failure, so that they would be able to supply fuel to not only their customers but to our forces. And the agreement that we signed with them includes maintenance and repairs to the generator, cost sharing mechanisms, Also, an allocation of a minimum amount of fuel during emergencies for our services. But there's no exclusivity in terms of purchasing during day-to-day operations.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any other additional questions before we go to a vote here from any member of council? Okay, so I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. The next matter for our section is the traffic control trial and traffic control and calming policy. Engineering ENG 2023-08. The recommendation is that council approve the implementation of a speed reduction trial on the following streets starting in the fall of 2023. Lorne Avenue, Payette Drive, Hilltop Drive, VL Street, Richelieu Street, Dufferin Street, Le Caron Avenue, Brûlé Street, Beaulieu Drive, Spawn Drive, Kerr Drive, and Burke Street between Dufferin Street and Lorne Avenue. Can I get someone to first the motion, support the motion? Sorry, Councillor Leroux, seconder. Councillor DeRush.
Sorry to interrupt. There's just a couple other sections to that motion. There are two other and that's.
My apologies. Thank you. And that a report be presented to council in the fall of 2024 that outlines the result of the trial and recommendations. And finally, that the attached traffic calming and traffic control policy be approved. My apology. Still have the same approvers, LaRue and DeRush. Thank you. I opened it up. So the presentation, the report from our section is before you. The report would be a trial on the streets as outlined. On page 24 of the report, there is a specific aerial view of those streets that we've outlined. This would be a trial measure in terms of calming measures as a first step in looking at collecting data. Some of the key things in the report is that the 50 zones would be reduced to 40 kilometers and the 40 zones, primarily school zones, would be reduced to 30. All appropriate policies would be created to support the calming measures as well. Brian, is there anything else that you'd like to add from that report?
Nothing further, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I open up for any questions or comments. Deputy LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just kind of wonder how we pick those roads. I can understand Lorne with the school being there, but when you get up into Kerr and Spawn, they're just intermediate roads that go nowhere. They just horseshoe roads. I don't think they would be prone to speeding. So I just wonder how the committee came at the solution of having all of those. I understand they're all close, but they're not arterial roads that take you somewhere except for Lorne.
I can certainly turn it to Brian, but I did omit that we were specifically looking at roads that didn't have sidewalks, and that was one of the recommendations or items that we had for future consideration that the mayor had brought forward. And so this particular area, there's several streets that don't have sidewalks, and that was one of the particular reasons that we looked at that. But Brian, if you want to add anything else as well, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, that's correct. The area that was picked as part of the report, Deputy Mayor, was specifically picked as a local residential streets with no sidewalks primarily, as was outlined in the referral item to provide traffic calming measures in areas where there was no sidewalks. So this area was selected as an ideal candidate because the majority of the roads were without sidewalks, and they are in vulnerable areas, meaning local residential streets and school zones, which is why the area was picked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Did we check with our OPP for any stats for any speeding on those roads? I can understand, like, as I said, in front of James Keating, but all the other one, when was the last time they issued a speeding ticket on Kerr or Spawn or Payette or VL, those types of roads?
Through you, Madam, to the Deputy Mayor, no stats were received from the OPP. We have received traffic speeding complaints on Lorne Avenue, and we have actually done measurements on Lorne Avenue with our street trailer, but nothing in particular in surrounding the residential streets.
Thank you, Brian. Any other questions? Yep. I'm sorry, Counselor Waters.
I was just wondering, with the coming effect here, how is it going to be monitored? Is somebody, is it, we're going to have the OPP in there with radar or?
Brian?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Waters. We would, as outlined in the report, we would provide monitoring before the trial begins. So we have a baseline scenario of data in terms of speed and volume through our speed monitoring trailer that we have at the roads division. We also have traffic tubes that also measure speed and traffic volume. And we also have a permanent fixed mounted sign that's currently in place at Overhead Bridge Road, but could be re-implemented within the study area to provide a baseline scenario. And then once, if approved, the trial area is implemented and the speed reductions are implemented and the signs are in place, we would do and redeploy those measuring devices to measure what the difference is during the trial, and then present those results to council, comparing the baseline and after the trial is implemented to see what the difference is. If it's successful, then that it might be the traffic signs and their speed reduction zones stay in place. But if there's a pervasive issue in terms of speeding, then additional advanced measures, which are also outlined in the report, such as speed tables, other traffic calming measures, even radar or photo radar enforcement technology.
And yes, Your Worship.
We all have it tonight. I appreciate the report, but I'm a little disappointed. I don't feel it's got the depth that I was hoping for, at least. I think this is a serious issue that's across the community. I hear it all the time. Speeding in the community. I think it was probably, if not the number one issue I heard when I was out and about. I agree with the deputy mayor about the streets. Like, I don't hear a lot of people on Kerr Street as an example, Kerr Drive talking about this, but I hear it every day, every week, it on Fox Street, Church Street as an example. I'm also a little concerned about the process. You know, the policy I'm a little concerned with. Residents need to take it upon themselves to fill out a petition and go talk to 50% of their people in the street and fill out a paper. Like, I think we're creating more bureaucracy and more work for, frankly, you and your team, Brian, to do this. I think there's got to be better solutions. And I'm also concerned that we're another year away until we've got some solutions. And I get and appreciate, you know, what you mentioned in your report about resources. I get that. I get time and people, I get all that. But people are asking us for solutions, and I feel that this isn't coming there. And I know we haven't had a lot of time for this, but the CEO and I had a brief conversation, about 3 minutes long at AMO, about some options, which some of our municipal partners are doing with success. I think we can lean on that. But this, what I'm seeing as motion is, I don't think it's going to do what we're looking for. And I think we're targeting areas that we're not really going to get data and help support the community. I'm a little disappointed, honestly. I personally would love to defer this back to staff, and hopefully when the dust settles, not literally, but literally, the CEO and you can maybe talk about some of these other things that happen in other communities and come back with more. That's my comments and thoughts on this.
Any other members of council have comments or? Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm going to build a little bit on what the mayor said, but I'm just because people have been active. I know I hear from residents on Hilltop all the time. I walk along that street and with my dogs and people are been saying for last 2-3 years about the speeding on Hilltop and people blowing through the stop sign at Hilltop and Le Caron and quite concerned. So I was happy to see this, but I think that people need to would appreciate knowing that there's going to be some action. And my question was going to be, I know people have put requests in, I know people have complained. Do they have to start this process all over again to as per this policy, or does the submissions that people have made already, does that count to get the ball rolling in terms of identifying a street for this pilot program? Thank you.
Brian, did
Thank
want-
you, Madam Chair. In terms of the pilot program, again, the idea was to obviously do this as an initial step to see what the impact on speeding, for example, is in these areas. If there's additional measures required, obviously, we can get comments and feedback during the trial from residents in the area. And if another area or areas are required to be trialed, as the mayor has suggested, then I'm definitely open to looking at other areas that are of a specific interest to council. This was only this trial area was identified as a primary because it didn't have sidewalks in them and had a lot of vulnerable areas, in particular the school zones. And obviously the comments received during the trial, whether it be for further measures, could also be presented to council at the conclusion of the trial for further measures. So for example, if it's traffic calming through speed tables, or more extreme measures such as photo radar measures that other municipalities have implemented from an enforcement perspective, or a combination thereof.
Thank you. Councilor. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I tend to agree with His Worship and Deputy Mayor LaRose that I look at this and I look at, for example, Beaulieu Drive, little wee short street that goes nowhere, and a number of other ones like they're there. Where are the biggest part of the speeding in the municipality? And I sit and I know it. Are the long straight streets, Fox Street, Church Street, Beck Boulevard. These are the streets where you have extensive speeding. Lorne is another one. And I do agree that Lorne Street is one that should be monitored and looked at. It's a school zone, and I know that there is speeding on that street. But I think that we would be better served if we were looking at these long streets like Church, Fox, Beck Boulevard, Lorne, as opposed to these little horseshoes. So I would probably agree to second the mayor's motion to refer back to staff.
Your Worship.
I'll just maybe ask a question, and I know there's a lot going on. I know we're coming to budget cycle, and I know you might not even had a chance to talk to the director yet, but we did come up with some information. I know there's other municipalities, like, would it be reasonable to ask you when the time is right? I would say let's get through budget cycle, maybe the end of Q1 or Q2, that you and the director could look at some new data and what our neighbors are doing and come back with more options. Would that be a reasonable request, or maybe you've already looked at that?
Through Madam Chair, to Mayor Austin, certainly that's an avenue that we as staff could pursue. Certainly, the one neighboring municipality that we're aware of that has pursued some unorthodox or some kind of innovative technology is kind of in the process of implementing. So the timing right now to engage them probably isn't great, but certainly, to your point about Q1, Q2, that might provide a little bit more time should committee wish to buy a little bit more time for staff to continue to explore. Certainly, I think Q1, Q2 would be a little bit more reasonable.
So I'll move a motion to refer back to staff. I'll move that.
Can I get some direction on what I do next? Because this is new for me, this one.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Absolutely. So a motion to refer takes precedence over the existing motion. So this would be, it's duly moved and seconded. So you take the vote, and whatever that decision is, if it's carried, we would move on. If it's defeated, you would continue with the original motion.
Great, thank you. Do they get to comment on the motion though that was presented, or do we just vote on it?
A motion to refer is not up for debate.
Okay, thank you. So all those in favor of the motion that has been presented? Opposed? The motion carries. Is there any other specific direction, Brian, that you need, or do you feel that the comments made were clear in terms of next steps?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, I think the direction is clear. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the next item, C, referral items for upcoming agenda for staff. Referrals, that the Transportation Environmental Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Items are stormwater management best practices, engineering standards. Q2 is been updated to move to Q4 of 2023. Traffic calming measures on sidewalks, road priorities, and with no sidewalks. That was kind of what we've discussed tonight, and I think that's been moved. The County of Simcoe Transit connection service improvements moved, updated to Q4 of 2023. RV pump station to empty black water holding tanks, and that report is scheduled for Q4 of 2023. Any additions at this point from any members of council, Your Worship?
I'd be comfortable to remove the County of Simcoe Transit Connection Service Improvements. I moved that to add that, but we've talked about that at the county a lot, and we're updating the transit master plan connections. Like, there's a lot of dialogue happening in county. And I don't think it's fair to ask Brian to go do more with the county. It's already in their work plan. I'm happy to bring it back when it's there, but I think it's appropriate to remove from this council agenda item. I'd be happy to move that referral item.
Thank you. Any other comments or anything else to add? Oh, can I get a mover to the mayor's? The mayor moved it, seconder? Councillor Vetabancourt, and any questions, comments? All those in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you. And the last section, just any questions from the media or public related to items on the agenda as adhered to from the notice of public requirements. Any comments or questions for this sections? Seeing none, I will give it back to you, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Marshall. We're going to move on to section 7B, which is Recreation and Community Services section. I'm going to turn the chair over to you, Deputy Mayor LaRose.
Thank you, Your Worship. Under 7A, we have our consent agenda. The recommended action that the following consent agenda items have been given due consideration and be received for information. We have one, which is the All Things Canadian post-event summary. Can we get a mover for that and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Leroux. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving down to 7B, matters for consideration. We have the first one is our fee waiver policy update and the recommended action that the revised fee waiver policy as presented in attachment 1 be approved. Can I get a mover for that? Moved by Councillor Waters, seconded by Councillor Drush. Do we have any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Our B2 is our summer cultural event. Recommended action that the subject to the separation of the recreation and event coordinator position into two separate roles during the 2024 budget process, staff be directed to return to the committee of the whole with terms of reference for a summer festival ad hoc committee. And that the staff utilize the 2024 All Things Canadian budget to support the ad hoc committee activities. And finally, that staff utilize the remainder of the 2024 All Things Canadian budget to update the municipal event equipment as outlined under option A. Can I get a mover and a seconder to get that on the floor? Moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Councillor Vetabancourt. Do we have any questions? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Oh, sorry. Jeez. I didn't see you. Councillor Vetabancourt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the report, it talks about the position being split and moving forward with this if the position is split during the budget process. we talked, we read earlier about the All Things Canadian Festival and how successful it was. And again, take the opportunity to compliment staff on a great job. If the position doesn't get split, am I to understand that the monies that may have been allocated to this new cultural event and maybe some equipment will remain with the All Things Canadian Festival?
I would say yes, that all monies committed would stay. But at this point, we do not have a budget item for a new event. Or as council knows, we haven't discussed whether we are going to split those positions. We'll do that at budget time. So most of this is just for information, just so we get our heads around it. So when it comes up a budget, we understand the difference between what a large event would be and cost and what our regular events would be.
Thank you. And I appreciate that explanation, Mr. Chair, because I think that discussion of budget will be an interesting one. And if proposals do not go forward, then we still have the All Things Canadian Festival that's there. Thank you.
At this point, we're not talking about losing anything.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. We have our referrals. We have the Champlain Culture Event, which ties into our last one. Winterama Growth and Expansion, Communities in Bloom, fee waiver request policy, digital signs and options for accessible mat at municipal beaches. And I would suggest that somebody move our fee waiver be taken away. Someone do it now. All right. Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor LaRue and Councillor Waters. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving down to D, we have question period for media and public. Do we have any questions on these items? Seeing none, your worship, back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. 8C is our Planning and Community Development Services section. I'm going to turn the chair to you, Councillor Vadabunker.
Thank you, Worship. Referring to the Planning and Community Development Services section of the Committee of the Whole agenda, we have three consent items, and I'll read the recommended action, and then I'll look for a mover and seconder, and I'll see if anybody wants to pull any of these items. That the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. Memo from the Director of Planning and Community Development, draft plan of subdivision, file number Pen sub 2023-02, and zoning bylaw amendment file number ZA 10 2023 -1255 Fuller Avenue. Number 2, memo from the Municipal Law Enforcement Officer Monthly Activity Report, August 2023. And number 3, Building Activity Report, August 2023. May I have a mover and seconder for this motion? Councillor Marchand, second Councillor LaRue. Anybody want any of these items pulled for a separate discussion? Yes, Councillor Rose, do you have a comment?
Thank you. Just one quick question on number 1, so we can do it now or pull it, doesn't matter.
Quick question.
Just quick question.
Ask a quick question.
All right.
Quick.
Just wondering what the status is of the subdivision on Fuller Avenue. Will they be, do you know when they will be proceeding?
Sorry, through you, Councillor Vadaboncourt. So if your question is respective when this development application will be proceeding or another subdivision on Fuller Avenue? So we have the St. Andrews subdivision. So that is still a draft approved subdivision that has a pre-servicing agreement, and they're fulfilling their obligations under that pre-servicing agreement. This is a new application for a subdivision at Sandy Bay.
You're welcome, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Madam Director. So any other comments or questions? Okay, I read the motion. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Matters for consideration. We have 4 items for consideration. The first item is Beaulieu Drive options, and this is from our referral list. And I'll read the recommended action and look for a mover and seconder. That report PL 2023-40 be received for information. May I have a mover? Councillor Marchand, seconder, Councillor Durush. So in this report, staff have looked at different options with respect to the extension of Beaulieu Drive. And the recommended option is that no action be taken at this particular time. The report is quite good and it lays out a number of options that for residents along Beaulieu Drive and property owners, if they want to pursue extending Beaulieu Drive, it's all clearly laid out. But as a town initiated action to extend that road, it's not being recommended. Essentially, the report is being recommended to be received for information. Madam Director, did I cover that all right? Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on the item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item is building permit fee review, and I'll read the recommended action and look for a mover and seconder. That report PL 2023-43 be received for information, and that notice be given of a public meeting regarding the intention to amend the building permit fees in accordance with the Building Code Act. So the report outlines our neighboring municipality, which we share building services, has recently amended their building permit fees. As two communities, we've tried to keep our building permit fees the same. They have increased their fees, and it's being recommended that we commence the process to increase our fees. There is some financial statistics in the report, and you may recall, members of council, that we've seen a decline in the building department reserve over the last couple of years, leading to the projection that if the trend continues, that our building department reserves would be depleted. So having a look at the building permit fees at this time would achieve two things. First of all, it would bring us into harmony with our neighbor, and second of all, it would start to replenish the reserve a bit and pay for the service. So if we're able to pay for the building permit services as per the provincial requirement, then we would not have to draw on reserves any further. So that's a summary of the report. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Yes, Councillor Waters.
It's not really a question. It's I believe there's a typo in the fee structure for the commercial renovations. I think the current fee and the proposed fees have been reversed.
Thank you for that comment, Councillor. Councillor LaRue picked that up at our section meeting, and I know the director has got an answer, so I'll ask her to respond to that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much through you, Councillor Vadimont-Court to Councillor Waters. It is a typo in the report. The commercial permit fees actually will go down with the updates to this the building fee study. It's again aligned with what Midlands did after evaluating the work and the effort it takes in. So under the Building Code Act, municipalities can only charge for the amount of or recover the cost for providing that service. So in their analysis, they identified that those types of permits they were overcharging for, and it brought them down a little bit. I would also add that the bulk of the town of Penetanguishene's permits are in the residential category. So that's where a lot of the impacted changes are.
So that would mean the $185 increase would actually be $185 decrease?
That's correct, Councillor. Councillor Marshall.
Thank you. The one question I do have, it is a significant increase for the single detached dwelling, $2,600. So just understanding the clarity around such a significant jump from that perspective.
Thank you, Councillor. Madam Director, if you could respond.
Yeah, thank you very much through you to Councillor Marchand. As I noted, that the town's bulk of our permits are through residential construction, and we've been fairly fortunate over the past couple of years that we've had quite healthy construction for new homes. So this would absolutely impact those new home constructions with increase of building permit fees. But I think it's important to recognize that the complexities around construction of new homes and changes under the Ontario Building Code require an increased effort of staff. And so that we're not making money off this. This is really for us to recover our own costs for providing that service.
Thank you, Madam Director. Any further questions or comments? Okay. Having heard the motion, all those in favor? Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, pardon me. I usually do that right at the beginning. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Roux, a seconder, Councillor Waters. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. The next item I'm going to ask the director to elaborate on, but I'll read the recommended action and I'll ask for a mover and seconder to get it on the floor. That the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene has determined that zoning bylaw amendment application ZA 5 2023 is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, the County of Simcoe official plan, and the Town of Penetanguishene official plan. And that zoning bylaw amendment application ZA 5 2023 concerning properties in the downtown and waterfront zone be approved. And further, that council pass a bylaw to amend the Town of Penetanguishene's comprehensive zoning bylaw 2022-17 to enact zoning amendment 5 2023. So may I have a mover, Councillor Roux, a seconder, His Worship, Mayor Rawson. So it's now on floor. So I'm going to ask Madam Director to get the highlights of her report, please.
Thank you very much. So this is an municipally initiated zoning amendment. If you'll recall that it was identified when we updated our zoning bylaw last June that there was a bit of confusion and an added permission that we didn't want to continue in the bylaw. The bylaw as it's written now would enable any properties within the downtown core and waterfront zone to completely permit a multiple dwelling unit. So any property in the downtown could convert from commercial space into an apartment dwelling. Through our work on economic development and specifically our market gap study that we had prepared, it was identified that this was something that is crucial to have updated. It is impacting the potential for our downtown to be prosperous and continue to support commercial businesses. So with council's direction, we did initiate this application. There was a public meeting that was held in August, and in the staff report there, staff addressed any comments that were received from the public or council at that time. I think you'll see a table with about 4 comments from the public that were received. Largely the questions from the public were, what does this mean for existing apartment buildings? The town is got some very unique properties that support multiple dwelling units. So those properties will continue to be able to exist without any changes or implications to them. There was some questions from residents on Tessier Drive and Tessier Court about that specific area being allowed to continue the permission for multiple dwelling units. And as those lands don't directly front onto Main Street, don't have a commercial face, we felt it was appropriate to support that they can continue to have that permission for apartment buildings. Lastly, there was some concerns about the reduction in parking or the parking standards that were being proposed. Just to clarify, this doesn't impact, again, existing parking requirements for those uses that are maybe not have all the parking they need now. It's only for any new uses would be required to meet that new parking standard, which is similar to the parking standards it just provides the clarity on parking in the downtown. Lastly, a question or comment was raised with respect to, is there an ability for some properties to have main floor residential? And we took a look at the lands itself and discovered that with our unique design or layout of downtown, that this wouldn't be a permission that would impact all properties equally. Some properties would have be better positioned to have both commercial and residential on the main floor. So it was our recommendation that we move ahead without allowing some of those properties that permission, that should a property that wants to convert some of their main floor space to residential, that they would come forward to council and go through the public process. And it wouldn't be an as of right permission for those properties. So staff's opinion is that we've responded to the public comments we received at the public meeting. We prepared a draft bylaw for council's consideration, taking in everything that we've heard. And we are recommending that the council pass the zoning bylaw and that this be approved, as it does meet the policies of the province, the county official plan, and is good planning. So hopefully I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Madam Director. Any questions of the director? Yes, Your Worship.
I just want to thank Andrea, you for putting this together and your quick response and bringing this before council and the public to comment on this. I think it's a great amendment and I'll be supporting it, but I just want to appreciate our work to bring this to the forefront.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Madam Director. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Roux, I did ask for a mover and seconder this time. Okay, very good. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. The last item is lift part lock control for the Champlain Shores subdivision. And we heard a little bit about that subdivision earlier at our council meeting when we had the public meeting, but this is to lift. This report deals with lifting part lock control to allow further subdivision of previously subdivided property so that the individual units can be sold. So this is really a technical matter under the Planning Act, and it allows units to be sold. This will continue to advance the development down at Champlain Shores, the residential or ground-oriented residential that is already under construction. Madam Director, did I capture that? Okay. Okay, very good. May I have a mover for that? Councillor Marchand, a seconder, Councillor Darash. Any questions or comments on this matter? All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. Referrals, we have 4 referrals. I'll read the motion that the Planning and Community Development Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. And I believe there's one that can come off, and I'll speak to that in a second. The first one is the vacant commercial property options, and that's to come forward in Q3 of 2023. The ATV ORV pilot project, Q4 of 2023. Update on bylaw enforcement of barrier-free parking spaces, and that's the one I believe can come off because I think council dealt with that earlier this evening. And the last one is the Blue Drive road options, and that can stay on until council deals with it in October. So does anybody have any items that would like to add to the referral list? Yes, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 2 I'd like to introduce tonight. The first one I'd like to introduce is a cell tower municipal policy. We know that there's been a lot of discussion on that. And I think as a municipality, we have to have that conversation about a policy and go through that process. But I'd like to add that as a referral for the director to look at that when the time is right. So I'd like to move the cell tower, our municipal policy and governance document. I'll move that, and after you do that, I'll bring the second one if that's okay.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that referral? Yes, Councillor Waters. So any discussion or questions of His Worship on this referral item? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Your second referral item?
Thank you. My second one is regarding our existing bylaw number 2014-29, being a bylaw to prohibit or regulate the keeping of certain animals within the town of Penetanguishene. I've had conversation with a member of the community, specifically in this bylaw regarding the keeping of chickens, backyard chickens, and how it's prohibited from this existing bylaw. So I'd like to move that forward for this council to review that entire bylaw when the time is right by staff.
Thank you, Worship. Is there a seconder for His Worship's motion to add this as a referral item? Your Worship, I do not see a seconder for your motion, so it will not be added to the referral list. Anything further, your worship?
No,
Any
thank you.
other referral items? Okay, so Madam Clerk, we have one additional referral item. We have the existing and we have one to be removed. So can we amend the motion accordingly, following additional existing referrals and one deletion? Does that work?
Yes, I have that captured. Thank you.
Okay, so having heard the motion, as amended. May I have a mover, please? Councilor LaRue, seconder, Councilor Marshall. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And with that, your worship, I'll ask if there's any questions from the media and the public. Yes, sir. If you want to come to the podium here, just identify yourself. There's a little button on at the base of that microphone that you have to push in order to be heard. You may want to pull it down a little bit too. Just there you go. Thank you.
Worship, councilors, my name is Michael Janak. I'm from La Fontaine. I have a vacant lot on Beaulieu Drive, and I'd like to know, when are you proceeding to allow me to have a building permit to build on this lot?
Thank you for your question. Madam Director, would you be able to respond to Mr. Janak's question?
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Vadamancourt. And potentially some of this Mike and I will talk about outside of tonight's council meeting. However, just the big piece that was discussed tonight at council is the opening of the road of Beaulieu Drive. Any property in town must have a public opened road in order to get a building permit. So that's the one hurdle with respect to this property. The second one is more is a zoning issue. The zone doesn't permit a building permit, so it would need to go through a rezoning before a building permit could be issued. So there are a couple barriers or impediments to be able to do what you plan to do. And the one that was discussed tonight was about how the town could participate in the opening of that road.
Mr. Janak, does that answer your question?
More so, I'd just like to know when, the time frame. You know, I'm only 55, so long, right? I get it. I understand there's a big cost effect. I know we discussed this a few times, which is great. I'd like to know if there's possibility in the air.
Mr. Janak, I understand your question, and I did put this as a referral item a few months ago because of that question about when your lot and other lots would be available for development. The staff report is quite good in terms of outlining options, but my suggestion to you is perhaps have an offline conversation with the director, and she can provide you with some more information with respect to and elaborate on the report.
It's all good. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vedabunker. We're moving on to 9, which is our section, 9D, which is our finance and corporate services section. Just 2 quick comments. Councillor DeRush has declared a conflict of interest for 9B3, so we'll turn the chair to the deputy mayor at that time. So that declaration's been made. And Madam Chair, for 9A1, when we get there, I'm just going to see if we can defer that item. Our CO has just been preempted with other priority items. So if the will of council is good, if we can defer that item. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Actually, I was going to suggest a deferral for that first item because we have not received the information to proceed. So could I get, I'm going to suggest that the following consent agenda item be deferred to a future meeting. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Mayor Rawson, seconded by Councillor Marchand. We'll go to the vote. All in favor? Opposed? It is carried. We have 4 matters for consideration this evening. Our first is the Fire and Emergency Services Dispatch Services Agreement with Barrie Fire and Emergency Services. I will read the recommendation. It is that council enters into the emergency dispatch agreement for dispatch services with Barry Fire and emergency services for a 5-year term, January 1st, 2024 to December 31st, 2028. And that a bylaw be brought to council authorizing the mayor and clerk to enter into the fire dispatch agreement. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Councillor LaRue, seconded by Councillor Vademont. Any comments or discussion around this item? I think it speaks for itself. It's very clear. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. The second item for discussion today is the community-based strategic plan. The recommendation is that the community-based strategic plan prepared in consultation with McSweeney and Associates Incorporated, attached as Appendix 2 to the staff report, be approved as presented, and that the following ratification, a brochure or pamphlet outlining the highlights from the project, be designed with the intent to disseminate to the town's local partners and community groups. And finally, that staff report back to council annually with an update on the project/action status and timelines. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Deputy Mayor LaRose, seconded by Councillor Vademont. Any comments on this item? Yes, Councillor Vademont.
Thank you, Councilor Darash. I just want to commend staff, members of council, the community for the input that they provided to the creation of this document, and then McSweeney and Associates, the consultants that work with us on the creation of this strategic plan. I think it's a fabulous document. It really lays out some really aspirational goals and objectives, and I think it's something that we'll be able to refer to for many years. So I just wanted to commend everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Vademont. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Marcia.
I would just add to that as well as that I was really happy to see that when we went out to get additional feedback in the community that we received even more feedback. So that's really great. This truly feels like a community strategic plan. And I was really pleased that there was some additional amendments made and recommendations brought forward, and they were taken seriously and incorporated into the document. So, this is a big undertaking, and I look forward to be part of the strategic plan and moving it forward.
Thank you for those comments. Any other comments from anyone? Seeing none, we'll go to the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. I will now pass the chair to my co-chair, Deputy Mayor LaRose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are on 7B3. We have an arena financial contribution from the Township of Tiny. And the recommended action that the staff be directed to submit a formal funding request in writing with supportive rationale to the Township of Tiny for an increased arena financial contribution as outlined in option 2, which is a 2-year phased increase to $75,000 by 2025, followed by an annual indexing thereafter. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Vademont, seconded by Councillor LaRue. Do we have any comments or questions? Councillor Vademont.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to commend staff. It's an excellent report. It really lays out the logic in terms of how we arrived at the figure of 75,000. I think the phase-in is very, very reasonable. And I think that it's something that the Council of the Township of Tiny should consider as a payment for their residents that use our facility. And it would be something that I think it would be well appreciated by their residents. Thank you.
Is there any other comments or questions? Your worship.
Thank you. Again, I'm going to appreciate the report, but it has a lot more questions that I think we need. I'm going to support this motion, but I was kind of hoping we would have went without a 2-year ramp up. I was kind of hoping we would have done it right out of the gate. For example, I'm reading on the report that our invoice, and I suspect it's for 2022, I'll ask Carrie, for 27,712 was not paid in full. And I saw that the amount's actually less in 22 by, $750. It was in 21. When I further go down to read about the utilization allocations, they're getting a bargain and they're putting the pennies in the piggy bank. So I don't know why we want to delay this 2 years. Why don't we just go right out of the gate for the 1 year? And I think this unfolds other funding pieces as we go forward. So I appreciate the work, Carrie, you've done on this to bring this forward. I think, it shows us what's fair, but I don't think we're getting the fair piece from our partners. So I'm anxious to hear what other members said. So I'd love to see us do this in budget year 2024 personally.
Is there any other comments or questions? Councillor Waters.
I'm a little concerned about the annual indexing thereafter. I was wondering if that could be removed and maybe reassessed at that time to see if just the indexing is appropriate, or maybe it needs to be changed completely. 75,000 sounds like a bargain to me. And if you only increased it by, cost of living or something, I just don't think you don't have the option of getting the money that you really should be getting for the service provided.
It's something that we could look at in the future. We have to see they're entering into our agreement, and then we would annualize it. And if there was any other supportive information, we would attain that at that time. Is there any other comments or questions? I have just one myself, just to say that when you look back from 2015, when it was an $18,000 500 bargain, then it was agreed to increase by a fair bit in 2018, and then that didn't happen. And then it went to the 26,000 and change, and then they only paid 25 out of that. I believe that the work that the treasurer has done to outline it's very straightforward, and anybody in doing anything in municipal stuff would understand that the 75,000 is a wonderful deal for all involved. So I'm glad hopefully it gets approved tonight and gets sent off and we can move forward. So with that, I will call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. So, Madam Chair, it can go back to you for the final one.
And just to note, just for the record, the chair didn't debate nor vote for that, just so we got that recorded.
Thank you very much. Our final item in this section is our Youth Endowment Fund Annual Report, Finance Report 2023-27. It's recommended that the town's Youth Endowment Fund Annual Report be received for information, and that the town's Community Wellbeing Committee recommend to council how the annual grant available be dispersed each year to benefit youth. And finally, that the town's Youth Endowment Fund bylaw be amended accordingly and brought forward for council approval. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Yes, moved by Councillor Marchand, seconded by Deputy Mayor LaRose. Any questions or discussion around this item? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We now go to our referrals, and the section has 3 referrals still on the docket. The first is a paper ballot consideration in the 2026 municipal election. This is in the future, Q1 2025. We have a discussion around staff position of grant writer, which is Q3 2023, and the Tiny Township funding agreement for the Penetanguishene Arena. We will keep that there until it all pans out, Q4 2023. And the motion reads that the Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Can I get a mover and seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Waters, seconded by Councillor Marchand. Are there any comments or additions that we would like to make to this? Seeing none, let's go to the vote. All in favor and opposed, the motion is carried. Finally, do we have any questions from our media or public regarding any action items that we just spoke to? Oh, okay. Then we will allow that. Go ahead,
Madam
Councillor.
Chair, I have a comment directed toward the fire chief. I'm not sure if it's permissible, but Chief, just driving around, I noticed that we now have these little reflective signs, for lack of a better term, on the fire hydrants. They really jump out at you when you're driving along there. And I just wanted to commend that initiative, because I've now noticed a lot more fire hydrants as I'm driving around. So just a comment. Thank you.
On that note, I will pass it on to our chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I saw members of the public looking up at us going, what are you guys laughing at? I started in council up or a while ago, forgetting their names. So they're looking at me going, what's going on? And it's been contagious. Everyone's forgetting their names. So that's what the little chuckles were about. We're gonna look for adjournment at 9:16 p.m. Moved by Councillor Marshall, second by Councillor Drush. All in favor. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.